Hi there and welcome to this video about while loops in youSRC. Now we've got two different types of loops that we use in programming. We have fixed loops and non-fixed loops. Now fixed loops are loops where we know in advance how many times they're going to run, which is like a for loop. So therefore we can set it up with the numbers, if you like, that it's going to run and the step value, etc. Whereas non-fixed loops are loops where we don't know how many times it's going to run. So I always equate this to playing cards. So as an example, a fixed loop is like where we know that we've got to deal a certain number of cards to the players before we start the game. So let's say we're playing a 3-card brag. Every player needs 3 cards. So we're going to repeat, if you like, the operation of giving a card to each player 3 times. So that's a fixed loop. Now a non-fixed loop might be, as an example, playing Snap. So we've got our cards and we're going to continue turning them over and putting them on the pile until there's 2 matching cards. Now we don't know when that will be. It could be the first time we turn a card over, it could be the last time we turn a card over, or even after that when we dish out when we finish the game. So you get the idea. So a non-fixed loop is when we don't know how many times it's going to run. So in youSRC we use a while loop for that. Okay, so if I have a look at this, so while, and a bit like an if statement, we have a condition for that. So let's just go through what I'm trying to do in this program. I've got a variable called random number and I've set it equal to 0. And what I'd like to be able to do is to keep creating random numbers between 0 and 100. Okay, and I'd like to continue doing that until a particular number comes up. Let's say I'm going to choose 34. So what I'm going to do here is while random number is not equal to 34. Okay, and then so I'm going to keep doing whatever's inside of my loop. So what I'd like to do is select a random number and I'd like to put that into a variable and I'd like to print it to the screen. So let's try this. So the function that we need is util.random, and I'm going to set its boundary to 100, so it's between 0 and 100, and then I'm going to place that into my variable. Okay, and print it to the screen. Okay, and when it's finished, whenever that is, I'm going to just do right line. Okay, so in theory, I'll have a list of numbers. We don't know how long that list is going to be because it's all random. Okay, so I have a list of numbers. The last number that should get printed is 34, at which point it will come up to the top again. Okay, find that it is now equal to 34 and therefore the loop is broken, so it jumps back down. So let's have a quick look at how this works. Okay, so see the scroll bar here, it's just about the size of the page there. The first number there was 21, the last number was 34. Okay, let's run that again and see where we end up on this one. So scroll bar much bigger this time, loads more numbers selected. First number is 65, last number was 34. Right, let's just go back and try this with, let's say, the number equals 7, and we'll do this between 0 and 10, and let's use the debugger this time and see how it's working. Okay, so we'll run the code. Okay, and run the app with the debugger. Okay, let's move that over a little bit. Right, so run the highlighted line. So come here, set the variable there. So while it's not equal to 7, so we do util.random, let random number, and we print that to the screen, and it's number 4. So number 4 is not equal to 7, so we continue back into the loop. 7, right. So in this case, 7, we will now find that it's going to check up here and find that random number is equal to 7, and so it will drop out of the loop. So when we run the next line, we can see it's dropped out of the loop and said game over. Okay, job done. So we can see how a while loop works. Okay, so the idea is it's a non-fixed loop. We don't know how many times it's going to run in theory. Okay, and therefore we let that work. Now, typical examples of a while loop within your app might be for a game, and we might run all of the different functions that we call for the game inside of a while loop, and we say, well, and we use a variable maybe called game over. Now, in any sort of many different ways in our game, maybe we could sort of lose enough lives and finally the game's finished. So at some point in our program somewhere, it might set that variable to, so let game over equal true. And so the very next time round the loop, it then stops the game, okay, and does the finishing credits, if you like, for the game. So that's an example of a while loop and how to actually create one. And hopefully you've got some idea of where we might want to actually use them in our games or in our apps.